wikis, right? Because as Cindy showed us this morning, we can configure all Flyer Courses content pages to allow everybody in the course to edit them, but they're pretty limited in terms of functionality when it comes to the kind of wiki work much of us want to do. Everybody knows what a wiki is? Not exactly. So basically, a wiki is a collaborative, essentially it's a website. Right? It has some of the limitations, or some limitations that it is somewhat more limited than a full-blown
website. But a wiki is a collaborative tool on the web that multiple people can contribute to, that they can configure, or they can design, format, include various kinds of multimedia, has navigation, multiple pages, and links, and so forth. Does that enough? Yes, Ginny? Yes. Indeed. Indeed it does. Canvas calls the pages we create wikis, and they are, in the most basic sense, potentially wikis, as I said, because we can allow students to collaborate on pages. That's an option, but they have very limited functionality. They don't have the kind of functionality, the kind of navigational linking functionality that one can accomplish in a true self-contained wiki. Has anybody used wikis for teaching? Not much. Yeah, Deb, I'm sorry. Yep. Deb, how have you used wikis for teaching?
Used to have students create lessons for each other. So a private wiki and then a public wiki where they were creating external resources to share.
Right. So sometimes it's just a collaborative tool, right, where that's more robust than, say, Google Docs. And at other times, you're actually creating a public presence. And as Rachel just talked about, and so eloquently, and she's so right, when we ask our students to create something for a real audience, that ups the stakes very significantly, right? And even, there's some middle ground. So even when we ask students to create wikis that they're sharing with other groups of students in the class, it's still sort of raising that level of professionalism because they have an audience other than just you. And that changes the stakes pretty significantly. Again, I wanted to just point you to some of the resources that we've provided in the shell for this session. So here I created a page called Teaching and Learning with Wikis. It starts with a quote which I kind of liked. If the wiki tool is used appropriately, it would support the following Chickering and Ehrman practices: cooperation between students, active learning, prompt feedback from peers, time on task, and so forth. If you've gotten to any of the sections in online learning, when she talks about retention, she talks about memory, she talks about emotion and the importance of emotion for learning. And in each one of those sections, she addresses, or she mentions, the potential for wikis because they require active learning, active participation, often responding to other people's work, and so forth. So there are lots and lots of potential for just a huge breadth of assignments, collaborative assignments, using wikis as the medium in which students collaborate. One of the things that I really like about wikis is that most of them now, a couple of things, there are several free wiki tools. Some of them are specifically free for educational uses, for example, Wiki Spaces. So they're thinking about educational uses specifically. And they're familiar, the interface is quite familiar to students. So the learning curve for students isn't very steep. And so if you're teaching a course that's about something other than learning how to use wikis, but you want your students to work in a wiki environment, they gain the experience very rapidly, and it's valuable experience because it's real world experience. Those are skills that are likely to be very useful in the workplace and later in their careers, but it's not, they don't have a lot of, they don't have to spend a lot of time learning, for example, coding language or the specifics of a certain program, which is particularly useful. Okay, I've included here a few links. One that I wanted to show you specifically is to a website that Eli Collins Brown built. It's I think it's around 2008, so it's not brand new. Maybe it's 2010. Anyway, it's not brand new, but there's a lot of really useful stuff on this site. He gives us a basic definition of wikis, and it's, if you take a moment just to read his introductory text here, you'll see that he used this site both as a way to explore wikis himself and as a way to create this information repository for other potential users. So one of the things I really I like about this site that I think is really useful, and as I said, you have a link to it. He provides some examples of uses, lots and lots, and you'll see here, I mean, just a ton of potential uses. E-portfolios, glossaries, annotated bibliographies. I mean, the list is, you know, this is probably just a very small subset of all the imagined potential uses for wikis. But it's a nice place to get started if you're thinking about, gee, I'd like to do something like this, but I'm not exactly sure how it would be best, how it would be best to frame an assignment. This is a nice place to get some ideas. The other thing that he provides here, and I've also added a link to it. Let's see, is it here? Yeah, yeah. Oops. Okay, I'm going to go back to my page because I can't remember exactly where it is this Wiki Matrix tool. This is a very cool tool. You're thinking about using wikis. There are a ton of them out there, and you're not sure what tool you want to use. And so you can step through this matrix, this wizard here under Choose. Wiki Choice Wizard. Let's just do it. It's going to walk us through a series of questions. Now, we could also select the questions that are important to us ourselves and not use the wiki or the wizard. But let's walk through this series of questions. I found it particularly useful as I was thinking about what other wiki tools are out there others than the ones that I'm familiar with. So the first question is, do you need a page history? So we've seen the page history in a couple of different contexts now. Phineas showed it to us when he was talking about content pages in WYO courses and also in Google. I find that when I'm teaching, a page history is really important, right? Because I want to know who's contributing what. And maybe I also want to see a page as it evolves, particularly if I'm asking for my students to step through a series of drafts. So yeah, for me, a page history is important. WYSIWYG, everybody know what WYSIWYG is? What you see is what you get. It's basically, is it going to look when it's done the way I thought it was going to look when I built it, right? What you see is what you get. Is that important to students? Yeah. It may or may not be important to you depending upon the context that you're teaching in. But for students, if it doesn't look the way they want it to look, most of them get pretty frustrated. WYSIWYG functionality is, I think, pretty ubiquitous on wikis now anyway. Whoops. And I said no, which I didn't want to say. Yes, I want it to be WYSIWYG. Now you're going to, as you see, where is it? Is it telling me? Somewhere I think it's telling me how many I have left. Where is it? Thank you. I can't find it because I can't see, but I remember that it showed me that somewhere. So, okay, do you need commercial support? In other words, do you need some outside company to be able to support your students? I hope not, right? Because if you're doing something that's that complicated, then you better be ready to spend a heck of a lot of time with your wiki. But, okay, so in my case, no. Maybe you feel differently, but you know, most wikis are going to have built-in help pages. This is talking about a professional support in an enterprise environment, a professional support option, like what we have with Canvas, right? We have a problem, we call them up. Hopefully you don't need that degree of support, but maybe. So I'm going to say no. There's my little count. The interface language. So maybe you have students who are writing for, you know, various different languages. Maybe you need translation ability. My students typically are writing in English. I don't need localization because it defaults to English. Do I want software hosted? Are you getting the idea here? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that we just are narrowing down these options so that eventually we're going to see what a list of wikis that might be suitable for us. I don't want to host a wiki. I want it hosted by the company. I don't need my own domain. And every single page there's an explanation about the question. Okay, so these are the wikis from which that fulfill my search criteria. Sorry. And now I can drill down even further, and I can look at a set at some comparators. So one of the things that's important to me when I teach with wikis is that my students aren't going to have to pay. So I just selected a bunch of wikis that I want to look at these and compare them. I can compare. I don't think there's a limit on how many I can compare. And now I have all this information about the wikis I selected. So BrainKeeper has a $35 licensing fee for 9 logins, and I don't think I want to do that, right? It just means that there's going to be a cost. I assume that, I don't know if that's users, if that terminology that they're using means users or just every time someone logs in is a login. I don't care at this point, right? I don't care because $35 is too much to spend. And there are lots of free tools out there. So one of the wikis that I have used is PBWiki. Determined by solution needs. I don't know exactly what that means anymore, if there's a price for educational uses or not, but I can drill down and go to PBWiki and see. Wikia is free, and so forth. So all of the information much of the information that I need to decide on a tool is here. And then I can drill down further and keep narrowing my options until I find a tool that I think I might like. And at the end of the day, I have found you pick the tool that you think you like the best, you use it, and if it doesn't work, then next semester you use a different platform.
How did you get from the end of the wizard to that?
I selected some wikis and said compare. So let me go back. I just, right here in this big long list, I just selected some wikis. Okay?
Selected from those 69 that.
Uh-huh.
I see.
Uh-huh. Yep, and then I just said compare. Okay. So the wiki platform that I have used most frequently is a platform called Wiki Spaces. Actually, before we do that, are there questions about this? I just found it to be an extremely useful tool if you're thinking you want to teach with wikis. Yeah.
Is there any concern about privacy or
Mm-hmm.
secure?
Yeah. Great question. So when you use a free application, a good rule of thumb is that you want to be careful about divulging any kind of FERPA information, right? So you're not going to put grading information on it. Your students are typically going to have to create an account. The account may or may not be a real account. So what I mean is I typically ask my students to use their UW email addresses if they can. Years ago, I had students balking at creating accounts for free applications on the web, and I encounter that less and less. But I don't ask them to necessarily include anything identifiable. For example, they don't have to include a picture. They don't include any traceable information. Yeah, but it's not their UW account. It's just their UW username, right? So it's not linked to UW in any way. And sometimes my students find, oh, I can't. That name is already taken. That username is already taken. What I typically do is for most of my wikis, I use a protected form, which means that they're not, it's not true. They're visible if somebody searches for them, but they're not editable. But they can be private. So yes, the short answer is yes, there are certain concerns, but there are also some real advantages to going out there in the real world, and you have to weigh those. And I think you have to share those with your students too, and explain to them. I once had a student I will actually pull up one of my wikis. One of the things that I've learned, Deb will attest to this, is that real clear instruction when you're asking students to work on a platform that is unfamiliar to them. They often, even though we feel like, oh, I spent an hour and I figured it out, no big deal, right? Students, I have found at least that my students often kind of freeze up when I ask them to go into that new environment. Real clear instruction helps a lot. Some low stakes introductions. So for example, let me pull up an example for you. Oh, Meg. Okay, there we go. Should have done this before, I apologize. Okay. I guess it doesn't matter. I've got another page here. Okay, so one of the things I do before I ever ask students to actually create anything in a wiki is I first show them a little tiny video. It's like 2 minutes long about understanding wikis, what they are, why they're useful, how they can be used, and so forth. I also, in my assignment prompt, I talk a lot about why we're using wikis, the value of them, both in a real world and in an educational environment. And I often have students come back to me after they finish a wiki project and they'll say, you know, this is one of the most valuable things I've done because now I know how to do it. And I think maybe I'll even build a wiki for something else, or maybe I'll have to do it in the workplace or something. But that first initial exposure can be pretty scary. So lots of hand-holding from the beginning is really important. Most wikis will provide for you some of the basic information. And so as you see here, it's as easy as clicking on edit and adding to a page. So this is, again, it's going to look really familiar. It looks a lot like our Canvas content pages, right? And I can just add text now to this page. I won't because it's an archive of an old wiki that I taught with. But I could. And I could look, whoops, let me go back. And I could add a lot of, you know, I could add files and graphics and videos and so forth. And we and our students are increasingly familiar with those processes. When I create a new page, the wiki will automatically create for me this navigation. So the links will automatically be created. So that relationship between pages, which we all know as users of the web, is really, really important. My students are learning about too, but the wiki is helping by providing the tools to build those relationships. So here's this little cute little very brief video that talks about why using wikis.
These four friends are going on a camping trip. They need to bring the right supplies because they're backpacking. The group needs to plan and plan well, so coordination is key. They're all computer users, so they start planning with an email. It starts with one, but then becomes a barrage. Email is not good at coordinating and organizing a group's input. This is the old way. Ooh. The important information is scattered across everyone's inbox. This isn't coordination. Let's start over. There is a better way. It requires you using a website called a wiki. Using a wiki, the group can coordinate their trip better. This is the new way. Yay! Most wikis work the same. They make it easy for everyone to change what appears.
Probably, you know, that's probably enough, right? You get the idea that this is a very friendly, accessible, brief video that talks about why this might be a useful tool and a useful process. The next thing I do is I give my students just an overview of the wiki. So here are the different pieces that you're going to be expected to use, or this is, in this case, this is what you're going to be asked to do. So this is not a wiki that they're creating. Right now, I've created this very small set of pages, essentially, as a place for them to begin to get familiar with this environment, and that's all. And all I'm asking them to do is to go to this page here and post a paragraph and a graphic, and that's all. But even that process at first can be really confusing for students, and having gone through that process, they get a few points, really low stakes. They feel more comfortable, and they're ready to begin setting up a wiki of their own. Wikispaces has functionality that allows me now to create a classroom and projects within the classroom so that all of my students' wikis live within my Wikispaces classroom as projects, which is kind of nice. The limitations, there are a few cosmetic limitations. In other words, students can't change the banners and colors and things like that in their wikis within the projects. But it's a nice way to, you know, sort of make things coherent and to share wikis with other students. That's like a super fast overview of how to get started with wikis. If you want to use them for teaching and learning, we could delve in lots more in the break. Yeah.
So what's the big difference between the wikis and then using the collaborations and the groups or all those things we just learned this morning?
Yeah. Yeah. So your groups, remember, in Canvas, you're not going to be able to share what you're doing in the groups with anybody else, whether that's somebody else in the course other than the other instructors or somebody outside of the course. So the wikis are really intended to have an outward face, right? So that's a big difference. Google Docs, yeah, you can make them public, but they're unidimensional essentially, right? Now there is a Google Sites wiki, and that's one of the tools that you could use, absolutely. But Google Docs, Google Forms, those are all sort of one dimension, and the wikis give you that depth and also the breadth of what essentially is a potentially a complete website, if you will. The other thing is that Google Docs don't really lend themselves to the kind of visual stuff. I mean, you can do it, but they don't really lend themselves to the formatting, visual, multimedia integration that wikis do. At least that's been my experience. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: if you had a class project, say it was demonstrate how to do silk.
Yeah.
Then as your students do that, they put this up as a wiki. Does that suggest the public then come and look at that and give you comments?
Potentially. And so those are choices that you or your students would make about whether or not the public could come and make comments or and
But if I wanted that,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. And I think it, like
the real world audience.
exactly. And I think that most group work, wiki collaborations are most effective when they're done with small groups. I find 4 or 5 students. Deb, what do you do? More than that?
More than that, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, you just have mayhem and students don't participating. Yeah. Right. So all of the kinds of considerations that you have with group work, right, come into play with this kind of collaboration as well. So that's another layer of instruction and facilitation that you need to think about is how do I help my students navigate the collaborative, the interpersonal part and the professional part of this collaboration, as well as the production. Yeah. Are there other questions? Excellent. I'm going to turn it over to Christy then, and she's going to talk about blogs. Get rid of some of this stuff. And again, both of these resources that I showed you and a few interesting articles about wikis are in the course. No, it's the battery's dead. Oh, the battery's dead. Yeah, sure. A different one. That one. Yeah, sorry. In the YO group for the course or for this session. All right. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, I think we're on. We're on. All right. Okay, I'm going to talk about blogs. A lot of people put we and a lot of people put wikis and blogs together when they talk about wikis, talk about these technologies, and they're kind of similar in that they are students. They're very easy for students to interact with, but blogs are much more. A blog is a shortcut for web blog. It's basically a web log. So it's basically a newspaper, an article, a series of articles that appear in some kind of format. Let me just read you hang on, let me go back to blogs really quick. I have a couple of things in there, and I'm going to show you. I think I'll not show the video because I don't want to watch it again mostly. But if you want to see it, there's a video in here, really quick on this is what a blog is. But basically, you can think of it as an online newspaper. But here's what the definition from Wikipedia is, which is a really very good place to get definitions of modern technologies. So maybe not awesome for some academic uses, but awesome for technologies. It's a discussion or informational site published online, consists of discrete entries or posts that typically display in reverse chronological order, which means the most recent is first.
And this is, I left this part in there because it's really important. Until 2009, blogs were usually the work of a single individual, occasionally a small group, covered a single subject. Now they're multi-author blogs have been developed. And this is what we're really talking about when we're talking about, since this session is on collaboration, we're talking about how do we have a collaboration on a blog. And there's been lots of examples of this. And the first one I actually saw was right around 2009. I went to a microbiology conference, but they had some really great technology things, and I was really interested in what they were doing in that area. And there was a guy there that had a blog, and I can't find it anymore because he stopped teaching the class, I think, but it was a blog on AIDS. And what he had done was for his students, what he did is he had his students research topics related to AIDS. And then he was going through and he was having them write articles about it that they were doing, it was pretty high level science class. They were doing pretty high level scientific research on this class and into journals and stuff, and then turn that information into something that was readable by a regular human being. And they would understand this the complexity of AIDS and all of the different scientific pieces of it and the social pieces. And they would do that, and it was really great. And he published it on a blog. And because he wanted other people to be able to read it, because the whole point was his students were taking scientific knowledge that was very difficult for people to read and turning it into something that people could read, right? So people had to read it, otherwise there was no point. So he did this, and the next semester he taught this. He did this one semester. The next semester he taught this. If you searched for AIDS online, his blog, his class blog became the first thing that came up. It was amazing, and he was like, whoa. And the reason was because he went through and he vetted these, before they posted it, he went through and he graded it, and he made it was good, made sure it was good, accurate information, and then he posted it. And because it was such good information, put in such a clear way, it became the place to go for information on AIDS. So that was really cool. And so that's one of the powers we talked a lot about with the wikis too, and Rachel talked about it as well. When it's public, the students put more effort into it, because these blogs that he was posting were being read by millions of people, right? This was there were lots of hits on these blogs. It was crazy. And so that's a really important piece of it. And so we have some examples, and I'm actually going to show you. I also have a expert on this whole blogging thing over here in Debbie. She's got an amazing blog of her own that is like worldwide readership. But I'm going to show you first. I'm going to show you the thing that Rachel alluded to this in her talk about the class we taught. And what we did for this class was it was an integrated travel blah, the whole thing. What she didn't tell you was that it was our ski team. So we coached the ski team together. And the class we were invited to represent the United States at the World University Games in Slovakia. So the class was attached to the World University Games. So while our students were going there and trying to race really fast the World University Games, they were actually engaging in pretty heavy scholastic work. They were doing research projects, these really incredible, there was 4 research projects. They were doing this really incredible research projects that were, one of them was they were collecting snow samples because they came back to measure the accumulation of ski wax in the snow at different parts of the course and where it accumulated the most. That one actually is going to be publishable, like for real, like legitly, because they did such an amazing job on it. We had a photo journal. We had a one on the carbon footprint of our team for that travel and everything. So they're really awesome. And one of the things that we decided we wanted to do was create a public forum for these students. And so what we did is we had a blog. The ski team has a blog. We post stuff on it every once in a while. This was a relatively recent post by one of our athletes. You can see down here we have, here's our team, here's the contributors. So these are all the people that have access to post to the blog. And so we've added all these people, so any of these people can post at any time about anything, and they do. They don't all do it all the time. There's like stretches of time when there's like a blog a week or a blog of a day, and the stretch of time that are like a blog a month maybe, because it's skiing and we're really excited in the winter and not quite as excited in the summer. Although the one I just showed you, the one that started was earlier this summer. So these are all of our people that are involved with this. And what we did was we had assignments. So this is, and if you want to know more about what we did as a teaching thing, you should go in and read this particular blog post of Rachel. She wrote up a whole report for the ENR, because we taught through ENR. We got a big grant to do it from them. And so this was her report to them. And so we posted up here. And so if you're interested in that, you should go read this. It's really good. But what we did is we went through and we had all the students post various things. Let's find one of these. So this is one that was after, and we actually didn't record this. This one is after. She posted this after we were done. You know, this was not required. This was nothing. She just felt like she needed to have some kind of follow-up to the end of it. So she just posted this, talking about what we remember about the trip after it was all over. And then you can go through and, well, we have our skier of the week, yoga on the finish line. And this is just talking about things. So what happened was we had required assignments. We said, okay, you have to have a blog post that talks about the environment of where we're skiing. Okay, what's happening in the environment? What are you seeing? What kind of environmental degradation are you seeing? That kind of stuff. What does the environment look like? And we had them post that, and they had to post that. But like this one was not one they had to post. They just got excited about posting stuff after a while. So they just started posting stuff. And so this one was just, you know, just talking about what we were doing while we were there. So we had several requirements and then several that weren't. And they're really, they're fun. I think it's fun to read. It's really interesting to see what they're thinking about as they're doing this. Most of these happened while they were in the middle of this intense race scenario. And one of them, I think, so some of them got, I'll show you in a minute, some of them got an incredible amount of hits. And you can see pictures, they post pictures in here of the place that we're racing, and there's the flame. And I'm going to show you really quick, I'm going to log in really quick here and show you. So here's something about the opening ceremonies, which didn't have anything. So Britta posted about the opening ceremonies, which she didn't How's this? Is it working now?
To a certain extent, that's what I'm after. You know, I need my students to collaborate in a really robust way. And so thinking really through what your objectives are, that whole backward design approach. What do I want my students to accomplish? And how do I get them there? As opposed to, what do I use? And now, how am I going to use it? Always try to think about what that objective is, what the end goal is, and what tools will support the end goal, as opposed to the other way around.
Right, good. Thank you, Deb. I mean, sorry, thank you, Meg. This is just, you had asked about I think it was Jenny, was it Jenny that asked? Somebody asked about oh no, it was Lydia, asked about if I could tell who was viewing it. I can't, but I can tell where they're coming from, right? So I can go in, so this is just this last week, so this is the last week of the amount of hits. I have no idea why suddenly we got a bunch of page views on July 3rd, because anybody posted anything, so I have no idea what happened there. But you can see that this is the happened, you know, the last bit. I mean, so these are it's mostly the U.S. and Alaska, and then various other places, and you can kind of see where they are, and you can see how many hits were this week. And you can do that with all of them, so you can kind of get an idea, and you can send this to your students, and then they're like, whoa, okay, maybe I better pay attention the next time or whatever. The one thing is that the other thing is important is you can notice here that how they get there. Some of them came through Blogspot, but a lot of them came through Facebook. And Debbie mentioned that too. When she tweeted it out, she got somebody else to retweet it. That sending the blogs out through your social networks is real important, and getting your students to do that. That's how you get people to come. So, you know, if you just throw it out there, nobody comes. You have to like advertise it, and it's helpful if people. And if you're doing a thing where you actually want, like the AIDS guy, he actually went out and solicited people to read the things to start with, right? He went out and he said, please, and we did this once we had Debbie do one for one of ours we did for microbiology that was similar. Went out and solicited and said, can you please come and read and make comments on our students' blogs? And that's a really good way to get started, because especially if they don't know the person, then that's very helpful, because they're getting, oh my goodness, there's this random person that has posted on my blog, a comment on my blog. So now I'm just going to really quickly show you how to create a blog. It's really easy. I use Blogger. I don't know, what do you use? Blogger. So you just go to Blogger. I use Blogger because it connects with the Google account. It's a Google thing, so it connects your account. So you just use the same login as you do with Google, and that makes it really easy. And then you're just going to you can create a various other things. You can go in here and you can create. You can see I have several blogs. You can say a new blog, and you can create a blog. You give it a name. You can choose one of their nifty templates. You can also add a custom templates, and you create the blog. Okay, I'm not going to create another one because I already have enough that I don't use already. You go to blogger.com, and then you log in, and there's going to be a new blog option. This is the one. So this was me trying to be a blogger right here. The while ID, that was me trying to be a blogger, which I just couldn't get off the ground. I was like, I can't do this. I don't know what to write about. I have nothing to say. So I have a lot to say. I know you're looking at me going, yeah, right. But I don't know what to say. I'm like, I don't know what to say. Maybe at some point I'll figure something out, but thus far I haven't. So you just say new blog, and then you create a new one. And then all you're going to do is you'll have something like this. You'll probably have one, right? So you click on it, and no thanks. And you go to new post, and you write stuff. I can tell you that a couple of things that for our blog that helped our student blogs a lot pictures are really great. So especially when you send them out to other social media, Facebook, if I have a picture on the blog and I hook it up to Facebook, that's awesome because the picture helps a lot to get links on Facebook. So if you can stick a picture in there. The other thing is that what's really cool is you can use things like if this, then that. Is that right? If this, then that. Anyway, what it does is it connects so that anytime anybody makes a blog post, it automatically posts to Facebook, which then automatically posts to Twitter. So we have all three of these things going with only one thing happening, which is really cool. I'll show you some point if you want to do that. It's really nice though, because then I don't have to, then if somebody goes and posts a blog without me paying much attention, it'll just automatically post to Facebook, and then that automatically posts to Twitter. So I've got that all set up to do that, and that's really kind of a cool thing to be able to do. But you're just going to go in there, and it's just the same stuff as before. You've got all your WYSIWYG. You can go in and you can compose it. You can add links. You can add pictures, videos, all kinds of stuff. You can also give it, schedule it. So I can say I don't want it to go off right now. I want it to go off at another time. So that you can space things a little bit if you're trying to do that type of thing, but you had a bunch that you had to talk about. Yeah.
What does that mean, YOID?
That was the name of my blog. So that was the one I didn't really ever take. Although it had 400 views, so maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. I don't know. I just didn't like it. And I only think I put 3 things on it. So yeah, and then you just hit save and publish. Actually, just publish it, and then you can actually view the blog, and there it is. So, and you can tag it so that you have, these are labels, so that if you had a bunch of things you were doing, you could tag things and go into those specific things. So that if you had different articles about certain things, you could pop in there and do that. Anybody have any questions on this? I think this is a very, I think one of the reasons I didn't answer one of the questions you asked Meg actually was why, why are you using this, why not do this a different way? But part of this, a huge chunk of this is the public audience. The public audience is what this is about. If you don't need a public audience, if you're just going to grade, there's no reason to have them do blogs necessarily. Yeah, Deb.
If you go to my Pinterest profile, pinterest.com/NPMaven, you'll see, scroll through two boards of interest. One will be blogging and education, and one is examples of academic blogs.
Yeah, there you go.
So those are 2 good resources for information about blogging and education.
And this is Deb's blog.
What's the URL? Pinterest.com/NPMaven. And then you'll see I actually created, NP. I created them for one of the evolution sessions.
Yeah.
One that's for blogging and education, and one is examples of academic blogs. If you go there, maybe you those URLs in there. I will. They're after the nonprofit ones. Is it M is in Mary? N is in nonprofit. Okay. Oh, right. So academic blog examples is the one, and the other one. So that's examples of blogs by faculty as well as for classes. And then the other one is.
Go away. Go away. Go away. Go away.
Well, you'll see it's one blogging in the classroom. So if you wouldn't mind putting those URLs in. And lots of good resources there. So.
I don't know how to get rid of this. Go away. Go away. I don't love you. Anyway, they're on here somewhere, and I can't show you because this thing does not wants me to get in there. Never mind. Well, we won't do this.
So lots of things.
This one? Or
resources about blogging in the classroom. So it's really good for that.
if you're interested in Pinterest, blogging, Twitter, I actually would encourage you to follow Deb because she knows what she's doing on this stuff. Like really, really knows what she's doing with this. We also have, this is her blog, which is not a class blog. This is just her personal, well, not exactly personal, but anyway, the one that she's running. So does anybody have any questions about blogs? Cool. We're going to take a short little break here so you can work a little bit and ask questions. And then Jeff is going to finish up our day with, I don't remember what he's finishing up, a big web conferencing, right? That's what it is. I was like, I don't remember what it was, but I know he's doing it. All right.